There's repetitions in here that connect it. And I mean, if you remember back in 18 where we sort of started some of these conversations, it was the disciples arguing over who's the greatest, which this passage fits alongside that very nicely in answering the concern of competition and superiority within God's people. But it answers that question of who's the greatest actually in the same way that Matthew had addressed it right before that story. So 18, the beginning of chapter 18 was the who's the greatest. Right before that was the story of Jesus and Peter having a conversation about the temple tax. And if you remember, Jesus makes the point that he doesn't owe the tax. He's Lord of the temple. And then he graciously and miraculously pays Peter's tax for him. So Jesus pays what he doesn't owe. So we already had, back in the end of chapter 17, this idea of God's gracious provision. And even providing, beyond what people were owed. That was the backdrop that made chapter 18 so outrageous. The reason we know the disciples were just wrong when they start fighting in chapter 18 is we just heard that this is a community where Jesus provides by grace. And they say, who's the greatest? And he's going, none of you deserve to be in the kingdom. That was the point. And so now we've circled back around to that idea of worthiness and God's provision by grace.